Gentlemen, hi, my name is Aziph Mustapha. You are tuned into our live show called Stay Kind. And this show is dedicated to kindness in all its forms, wherever it happens around the world. And we will talk about it, we will discuss it. So if any of you are tuning in right now, I'd be happy to get a shout out from all of you, where you're from, where you're tuning in from, what's going on in your lives. Just put it in the chat. And people have asked me again, why is the show called Stay Kind? Or why do I always use Stay Kind in all of my videos and in all of my posts, actually? It's come to be like a tagline for me. And it's not natural. So people ask you, why stay kind? Now, why isn't like be kind and telling people to be kind? Well, the main reason is I believe deep inside, everyone is kind and everyone is created good and everyone is created pure. And you become mean or unkind because of nurturing, or because things that happened in your life, and that's how you were taught, and so on and so forth. But deep inside, I am very sure that every one of you, each and every one of you, are kind. So it's about remaining kind and staying kind. So I hope we are tuned in. I'm not receiving any comments yet from the crowd. So if you can hear me, please let me know. Actually, I don't see it on my stream yet. I don't know if any of my co-hosts are seeing this at the moment. So, okay, so we are live. I'm just not getting it on my phone yet. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in to Stay Kind, your weekly show all about kindness. If you have any examples or any one you would like us to highlight on the show, please do. I do have 5 co-hosts with me tonight. And without further ado, I'm just going to bring them all in. We have Choong, we have Rahim, Osman,
Hello.
Ummi, Saada, Fedora, and we have Nurul Fathiyah all with me. Hey everyone, hello! It's great to be
Hello.
together.
Hello. Good
It's so
evening.
great. It's so much fun. And you know what, guys? Tonight we're gonna try something totally new, so it's something totally different. Usually I'm the host of the show, and I kind of call the shots and see how things go. But tonight we are going to play it differently. I am going to be the guest, and Carl, Rahim, Ummi, Fedora, and Nurul Fathiyah, they are going to be the host for tonight, and they're going to ask none other than me questions. So I don't really know what they're going to ask me. So I'm going to hand over the show to you guys. Take it away, guys. I'm at your mercy.
Hi,
Silakan.
Aziph.
Hello.
I hope you are okay. Great today.
I am good. Thank you, Umi.
Okay, I'm wondering who is Aziph Mustapha? Who are you, and why you do what you are doing?
Wow, that's a great question. Thank you so much, Umi. Well, I am who I am. I'm basically an open book because everything that I do, you can read on my on my posts. Every day I'm posting. You can see my cats. Everybody knows my cats' names. There's Charlie, Mary, Charles, and who's the last one? Cinnamon. So those are my cats. But I am currently in Celcom. I'm still wearing my uniform, guys. I just finished work actually, and I am, I don't know. I've done many things in my career. I've had a long 24-year career now. And I don't know. I would say, if you insist on how would I define myself, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a family guy. And I also happen to work and make a living, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I work with people. So that's, I think, the constant of my entire career. I've had direct responsibilities and dealing with people, and I enjoy that. So that's who I am. Thank you so much, Umi.
Okay, great. And next question. I saw at your LinkedIn page that you are the head of culture transformation and employee engagement. Actually, this is my first time saw this designation. So we want to know, what is head of culture transformation? What are you doing day to day? Like employee engagement, are you engaging with the employee every day? Yeah, I'm wondering.
Great question. Wow. Actually, when I was hired, that was the first time I heard of the designation culture transformation. And to be very honest, throughout my 20 odd year career, I've never held a position in HR. I've never had culture or engagement in any of my designations. So I tell young people, it doesn't matter lah what you work, what your designation is. Eventually you'll find something that you love, and it may take like me 20 odd years. But what I do on a day-to-day basis is actually develop ways on engaging the employee better, because we realize that an engaged employee is a much more profitable employee. It's a much more productive employee, because if they're disengaged with the company, and many employees around the world are very, very disengaged with their employers, which means that they tak kisah, they have a tak kisah attitude. They're not invested in what they do. So by engaging them with various activities, various interventions, we hope that we have a tighter connection, and actually an emotional connection with our employees, so that they become more productive and more effective. And in culture transformation, it was actually a role that was created before I joined. There was never a role called culture transformation in Celcom. So they hired me because Celcom felt that they needed to move away from their current culture at that time. It was 2.5 years ago. And they wanted to become more progressive, more efficient, more corporate-like, because before this, we were known as kind of a GLC. And we wanted to move away from that kind of, what is a GLC kind of perception, to more forward-thinking, more corporate, more dynamic. And as the head of culture transformation, I think of ways to reach that goal, and how to get employees to understand that this is the direction we're going, and getting everyone aligned. And basically, when I was hired, my CEO said, I need a cheerleader. So I think I look good in short skirts, maybe, which is why he said, Aziph, you're the perfect cheerleader for Celcom, come on board. So, which is why I'm I'm working at Celcom.
So employee engagement, how to actually measure your success?
It's a very good question. We do obviously engagement surveys and tests, and we're moving away from annual surveys that we used to do for many years, into more pulses. So which means every quarter we send out a survey, and we ask certain segments of the employee, how are you feeling? How engaged are you? One of the questions is actually, are you actively considering working elsewhere? And because we've made it a point that all of these questionnaires are anonymous, it's guaranteed anonymous, I don't know who's answering what. So people are comfortable actually telling us how they feel. So the most actively disengaged employees are those who are actually, on job street all day, every day, looking for work, or on LinkedIn trying to find new opportunities. But engaged ones are the ones we want. We want to build a more engagement. So we monitor many different metrics. Staff turnover, are they looking elsewhere, how unhappy they are, happiness levels. We even ask, are you happy? Are you ready to attack new challenges and things like that. So that's how we keep score, and how we push ourselves and move the needle on that.
Thank you so much, Aziph. It must be very interesting working in Celcom. Over to you, Fedora, for the next question.
Yes, thanks, Ummi. I think such great questions, Ummi, for Aziph. Aziph here. Yeah, I'm just gonna follow through from there. So yes, currently you're in your role as head of culture transformation and employee engagement. So if you have that wish, and you're not where you are right now, if you could explore, what would you like to be, Aziph, and may we all know why.
Wow, that's a deep one. So if I were not head of culture transformation and employee engagement at Celcom, wow, at this point in time, really, I'm not looking. I'm super happy where I am, mainly because I get to engage with so many different people. and I've said this before, I've probably met more people face to face in Celcom. We have over 3,000 employees, about 3,500 employees, both permanent, on contract, on third party, and all of that. And I have met, I would estimate 90% of them face to face, because I have traveled to every single location where Celcom operates. Sometimes in rural areas in Sabah and Sarawak, you can't fly in and out in a day, so we have to spend nights there as well. So I've been all around the country meeting up with people, and I enjoy that so much because I want to listen to them and I want to understand what's going on in their mind. And one of the jobs I held before coming to Celcom was in an agency called Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia, or the Malaysian Innovation Foundation. And similarly, and which is why I think Celcom headhunted me, because in Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia, I would travel the country as well, and I would meet with innovators in small kampungs everywhere, places you've never heard of, in the interiors of Sabah and Sarawak and in Pahang and Kelantan. And I've been to all of them, and I've created and I've built so many relationships throughout the 6 years that I was there, that it was like a dream come true for me. So I guess anywhere that I am able to connect with people on a real level and get to know people and people get to know me, I'll be happy.
Yes, I can see that. I think after attending a few of your sessions, right, you continue to be so passionate about your current role, and as an employee engagement head, I think you clearly are the epitome. So yeah, thank you, Aziph, for that answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over to
Nurul. Me.
Nurul, right?
Okay, Aziph, I do have a question for you, but since we are still talking about your role in Celcom, and there's a lot of engagement that you've done to in your job, you need to engage with a lot of people. And I can see there are two questions regarding this from the audience. If you don't mind, I'm just going to read it for you. The first question is high attrition rate due to less or no engagement with employees?
Yeah, high attrition rate. Thanks, Abdul Majid. High attrition rate is probably a symptom of low engagement. So if there's low engagement, you'll tend to see very soon after people will leave, and there's high turnover in a company. But in a very competitive industry like we are in, telco, it's quite normal to have high turnover because there's so many opportunities out there, right? There's so many companies and they all want the best, and we are really fighting to keep our employees as well as attract the best employees out there, not just from Malaysia but from all over the world, not just from telecommunications industries, any industry. So if there's a fantastic person from the hospitality industry maybe, and they're really customer centric and they know how to treat customers, even they would be interesting to us. So high attrition rate is something of a given in highly competitive industries, but for us it is really a sign of low engagement.
All right, and I'm just going to read a question from Radhika Satya. How do you get genuine response from employees, especially regarding happiness, and especially in an environment where the management is known to not care, or in our word Malay, tidak kisah? Tak apa, macam tu.
It really is a question of trust, Radhika. So when I joined Celcom, the first 6 months, basically my boss, who is the CHRO, the Chief Human Resource Officer, told me, go out there, here's basically a plane ticket, an open ticket, go fly everywhere and just get to know people. And it was just not getting to know people, it's important for people to know me as well. So as soon as they trusted that they could say anything to me and I'm not going to take action, I'm going to tell people about it. And if what they're saying is a suggestion, they can see that it's being raised to the highest level, right? Case in point, somebody in Sabah told me in confidence something that they felt Celcom should do. And a couple of weeks later in a town hall, CEO addressing everyone, 3,500 people online, he's mentioning this idea. So those sort of cues will tell people that actually what I say makes a difference and is impactful. And I can see Aziph and his team actually caring about us and really taking our voice to the top level. And the management is known to tak kisah is, sometimes in my job, I need to obviously manage upwards because I have to present to the top management, I have to present to the CEO, I present to the board. And it's not just about getting what the senior management wants the employees to do. Half of my job is bringing what employees want to the senior management. And that's a tricky proposition, because you don't want to have career limiting moves. You don't want to say something that they don't want to say, but part of my job is to be authentic and honest. And even though it's something that they don't want to hear, the chairman doesn't want to hear this, but that's my job, right? So I have to tell them things. Sometimes it's about them. Sometimes it's something that they do which is not wrong, it's not illegal, it's not bad, but sometimes it's perceived as not supportive of the employees. So I will have to find ways to tell people this in a nice way, get their support, get their buy-in, and say, maybe we change this. And what's your idea to change the way we do this? And sometimes having to manage upwards is a skill you need to build. Thanks, Radhika.
Okay, and here is my question. Hang on. And here is my question to you. You are surrounded by influencers. Your late dad, your late brother. I love him. And you've been around in a lot of organizations working with different level of positions and roles. Now, my question is, what is the best advice given to you, and how do you internalize and practice it as Aziph Mustapha?
Wow. I used to be in a job I totally loved in Yayasan Inovasi, and one of my mentors is Tan Sri Madina. Tan Sri Madina was the KSU of the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation at the time. And she is this iron lady, right? Everybody's scared of her because she would get her way and she'd be very direct and very strong-willed. And, CEOs of major agencies with thousands of people under them and thousands of PhDs under them would be afraid to even approach her. But I found ways to be able to connect with her, and she even allowed me, because the only time she had was like before 8 a.m., before her day started. So I would go to her office at 7:30 a.m. And sit in front of the office for her and wait to have these conversations with her because I found them so valuable. And one of the things she told me was that always make time for your people, regardless of how busy you were. So I've taken that to heart, and whenever anyone in Celcom, really 3,500 people, ask for my time, I would try and find a way. I mean, it's very difficult, but 15-minute slices, sometimes 10-minute slots I'd give people. I have 10 minutes here between these two meetings. Do you want to meet then? So I've taken that to heart, and I would advise anyone to do the same. If you make time for your people, they'll make time for you, and they will, do their best for you.
Always have time for your people. Thank you so much, Aziph. Over to you, Abang Long, Rahim Osman.
All right. Thank you. Like I said, this is the first time that people call me Abang Long. Never ever in my life people call me Abang Long because I'm not the sulong. I'm the bonsu. But I don't behave like a bonsu. I'm not a typical bonsu anyway. Aziph, I think I look at your profile for the first time. Because I mean this session is supposed to be a different session compared to the previous two, right? So found out actually you have a very colorful background, from the working level until a CEO of the company until the current positions. So can you share with us what would be your challenges or probably your highlights, or even to some degree what would be your disappointment in some of these agencies that you have already joined so far? Can you share with us?
Thanks so much, Rahim. I came back from the States where I was studying in the early 90s. So it was not a great time to find work. And after being away for so long, I studied for my finance degree, and I was offered a scholarship to do my MBA from the school. So I continued on. I didn't complete my MBA for one reason or the other. There were some things that happened back home. I had to come back. So after settling that, the typical route would be to look for work lah. But I have this creative streak in me. So I enjoy singing. I enjoy the creative side of life. So I found work in advertising, and particularly in what they call talent casting, right? So to find talent for TV commercials. That was a big thing. And I actually discovered a few big names in the local advertising industry. It was great work. You know, all I did was stalk the malls to look for beautiful women. What better work could you have? And approach them and actually have something to talk to them about. Say, oh, you're beautiful. Would you like to come and do casting for us? And I was quite successful at that. But at the same time, I met OG Ahmad Daud. And Kak OG was a good friend of my late brother's. Carl is so happy to hear her name there. And, you know, so we met and I told her, I'm kind of looking for work here, Kak OG. And she said, well, I have a production company, obviously, OG's Productions. And we're looking for a production manager. And I thought, wow, this is a step up for me. Just out of college, a year of doing, you know, casting on and off, and now somebody's offering me a managerial positions or so I thought. So I joined her to become production manager. And first thing, we went for a shoot in the interiors of Pahang with Eman Mana, you know, group of really awesome actors. So I finally discovered that the JD of a production manager is to go bungkus nasi lemak and teh tarik and make sure everyone's fed. Go talk to the orang kampung where you want to have the shoot the next day to get their permission to shoot there. So that was my job, but you know, it was great. I loved it. I think I worked on at least 5 or 6 different telemovies together with Kak Oji. It was fantastic work. But eventually, you know, being the good son that I am, my mom asked, I think at the most 2 times, she said, when are you going to get a job? So I'm like, I do have a job. I'm paying bills. I'm being paid quite well. And then second time she asked the same question, you know, maybe a couple of weeks later, when are you going to get a job? So I figured out that she doesn't consider this a true job. So I worked in a bank. I applied for and I got work at a bank. And that was a whole other experience because I started off in what they call GSD, General Services Department, which is another production manager type role because kita orang at GSD would look after the drivers, the vehicles, the buildings, the assets of the company, of the bank. And we had 13,000 employees and branches all over the country. So it was busy work. But eventually at one annual dinner, I was singing and playing the guitar because that's what I love to do. And the vice president of corporate comm was saying, what the hell are you doing at GSD, Aziph? Why are you stuck there in the basement looking at cars and drivers where you should be somewhere more, you know, noticeable? So he brought me into corporate comm. I enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot of things, especially because we were producing annual reports, Rahim. And as you know, annual reports are so detailed in nature. And it's where I learned how to really proofread, really take care of, you know, spelling, grammar, and all of that. And my staff till today cannot understand how I can find mistakes with documents that they have proofread themselves 10 times. But, you know, I was trained by the best. And so that was very interesting. So my career went up and down, Rahim. I then joined a small startup. At the time, it wasn't called startups, but I was a general manager of a international consulting firm called Loyalty Group International, and their head office was in Norway, and they just opened an office in Kuala Lumpur called Loyalty Group International Kuala Lumpur, and I was hired as the general manager of that small outfit, and that was where I learned, you know, to become a manager, to become a leader, and so on and so forth. Then I went on a 10-year entrepreneurship journey, setting up many different businesses, and eventually losing all of my money. I'm still in a deep hole because we invested a lot of money, and I'm still paying off that debt, really, even after all of these years. And so then I started work at various different government agencies, first with MDEC, which was also great because they were in charge of, you know, building the multimedia development of the nation. And then I was headhunted to start up this new organization called Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia as the COO. So at a relatively young age, I was in senior management positions at national agencies. So very interesting. I spent 6 years there. I loved that organization. I still do. It's a wonderful organization. It does great things for the nation. And after that, after a few jobs after, now here I am in Celcom.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah, interesting. I think um, yeah, there are several organizations that I'm also very familiar with. For example, MDEC, Celcom, who is also our customer currently. And I think based on your experience, right, I'm sure you can also advise, because you have gone through several bad patches as well in terms of your path, right? Especially when it comes to people who wants to go into entrepreneurship, especially the young people, because everybody want to be a businessman, but they don't know actually it's a tough field, you know. So if you look at all the successful people now, right, many of them have already gone through all these bad patches. So I'm sure you can also add to your to the audience today that what kind of advice you can also give to them if they want to go into this entrepreneurship or even startup.
Right. Wow. Because I've seen both sides of the story. Uh, I would advise. I mean, if you want to really get into it, really, it's a game of all or nothing. I mean, you can have a side hustle. That's fine if you want to do it to get a little bit of extra money. But if you want to build a business, it is truly all or nothing. And I went for it. I mean, I tell you, 10 years, and many a time I didn't know where the next meal is going to come from. I couldn't fill gas in my car, so I had to walk. And it was tough, and it was tough for my family. So if you have a young family like I had at the time, when I started, I didn't, but at the end, I had 3 kids, and I had to make a choice. I cannot let my wife and 3 kids suffer because I'm trying to build my passion and I'm not getting anywhere. So eventually, you need to cut your losses. And even though I was in a big hole and I owed tremendous amount of money, I had to cut the losses and I had to go begging for work. And if you're not prepared to do that, and if you don't have a safety net, and if you don't have, you need to know whether it's worthwhile to put your family through it. I mean, if you're single, you just come out of college, you have no bills, just your mom and dad feeds you, by all means, do it. Or if you're living on your own and you're happy not to eat for 2-3 days, do it. But if you need to feed your kids, it's a different question. And as a man, you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, are you doing the right thing? And eventually I said, no, I cannot sustain this anymore. So I had to go for an out. But I tell you what, Rahim, very interesting story. At the tail end of this experiment, right? And my partners and I, we put on the table every last cent that we had. And there was a junket, a government-sponsored trip to Saudi. And our business was about somewhat Islamic. We had this IT system that could mine through hadith. So we're building a hadith management system. And it was an amazing idea. We needed money for it. And we thought we could raise funds in Saudi. So I followed MDEC. Rahim, you're familiar with MDEC. And they were arranging a trip for entrepreneurs and business leaders to go to Saudi for like a week and meet with leaders there. So my partners and I put all of our last money together to buy me a ticket. And he said, Aziph, you're the best person to go, you go. The rest of us will not eat while you're there, but here's the ticket, go. So I went and I traveled with MDEC, and we went to Riyadh. We met all of these sheikhs. We met amazing people. And I didn't get funding. So I decided to stay on. So the visa we received was for 30 days. So I stayed on for the next 3 weeks, sleeping on people's couches, bumming meals from where I got. I was adept at riding the Rialin bus. It's a 2 Rial bus throughout Jeddah. And I knew my way around in the next 3 weeks. And I met so many great people, but we still couldn't gain funding. So on the last Friday that I was there, I thought, I had a little bit of money. I thought the best place to go now after I tried everything was to go to Makkah to pray in front of the Kaaba with the last money that I had. The next day I'm supposed to leave. My ticket is due. So I took a bus. It was 10 riyals to get to Makkah from Jeddah. So I was there, I was praying. It was a Friday. And on Fridays in Makkah before COVID, there's at least 1 million people. I mean, it's packed back to back of people sitting, waiting for the Friday prayers to start. So I was sitting there. And behind me was a gentleman who tapped on my shoulder and said, Aziph, is that you? And his name was Abdullah Kadebacha. He was the vice president of MDAC. He went on the trip to Saudi with me 4 weeks ago. He went back to Malaysia, worked for 2 weeks, came back to Makkah with his family, with his wife, for Umrah. So out of 1 million people, this guy was sitting behind me, tapped my shoulder and said, Aziph, are you still here? I said, yes, I'm still here, Chief, because I couldn't find funding. I have to leave tomorrow. So he said, what's your next step? I said, I need a job. So he said, as soon as you get off the plane, come see me. We'll hook you up with a job. So, I mean, you cannot write the script, right? You can't even plan for this. And these things happen. Mashallah. It was just risky for me. I went back. I got a job with him. I started work. So it's amazing.
Right. Okay. I have another question for you.
Sure.
From one of our chats, right? You did mention something about your past experience as a CEO that you want to share with us today. Probably you can do that now.
Wow. Like I said, I was hired as the COO. I served under 3 different CEOs. They were hired and they couldn't last, and they had to leave, and they were hired, couldn't last. And I was made acting CEO twice. So eventually, I paid my dues and I proved my worth. And one of the main issues with me, they thought I was too young. Actually, I look young. I'm awet muda. It's not that I'm that young, but I think I act young. So the issue was always, he's too young to be CEO, but I was already 40 plus at the time. But anyway, eventually I was made CEO. So I was CEO for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And we did our very best to bring up grassroots innovations. That's what it was called. And I built up my team, very young team. Majority of them were fresh graduates, and we built up skills among them, and they could present. Some of my team members were very young, but could present at international conferences. And I was very proud of them. And I kind of took what I gave to my own company as an entrepreneur to that agency, because I felt the same type of responsibility and I felt the same type of passion. So I spent, as much time as I did as an entrepreneur, as a CEO. I gave blood, sweat, and tears. But I was kind of blinded that it's not my company. Somebody else calls the shots. I report to the Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation. He's the chairman of the Board of Trustees. And as CEO, I report directly to him. And the KSU, obviously, was also on the Board of Trustees. And because of, I guess, it's political instability that I don't get my fingers in. I don't mind it enough. I think maybe I should have, but I didn't. So a new minister came on board, and my contract was about to expire. And as a CEO, you're on contract, on your 2-year contracts. So like months before my contract expires, we do the normal thing. We write to the board, remuneration committee, renew this person's contract, which is mine. And the remuneration committee met. The board liked me. We just had a board meeting, and they gave me good reviews. So I was confident things would happen, but the minister wouldn't meet me. So I could not meet with him to confirm, am I still going to be the CEO? So a couple of days before my contract expired, this was 4 years ago, and it was the last weekend of Ramadan, and my wife and I were hosting a Raya open house. So we had tents. I was the CEO. I could afford tents and caterers and invite hundreds of people. So we had hundreds of people coming. And I got this SMS, a WhatsApp rather, from the head of HR. He said, boss, bad news. This is a message I got from the chairman. So the chairman basically said, as if it wasn't a message to me, it was a message to the head of HR. Please get prepared to greet new CEO who's going to come on Monday. And this was Saturday. And I was like, what? What? So we were tengah susun meja. We were making sure that things were going to be okay for the open house that night, right? And I look across to my wife and I say, if I tell my wife this now, she's going to tear the tents down and chase people away from the house. So as the man, I sucked it up. I said, I can do this. I can greet guests. I can smile and laugh. And we're going to have a good time. And I'm not going to tell my wife. I'm going to tell anyone. So we did. So a few hundred people came and ate and left. And that night, while we were sweeping, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to tell my wife, I said, I'm sorry, sayang, sit down. I got news for you. And, this is actually devastating for a family, right? Because you are on a fixed income. You don't have side businesses. You don't have side hustles. You rely on salary. And to be honest, I was enjoying the perks of being the CEO. My youngest son goes to school on a chauffeur-driven car. And I have private secretaries and I have the whole organization doing what I want to do. So I got kind of used to that lifestyle, right? But overnight, it was taken away from me. So the ability to pick yourself up, I think, is crucial, critical. I never knew I could do that, but I did because I had gone through that before as an entrepreneur, not being able to put food on the table. I said, never again. I'm not going to let this happen to my house. And so I put aside all my money. I didn't spend any money. Instead of chauffeur-driven car, now I'm on a 150cc scooter because it only takes 7 ringgit to fill up the tank. So I would fill up the tank and I would ride to KL, an hour away from where I live, to seek work. So I would meet everybody I knew. And Alhamdulillah, I thank God, it didn't take me long to meet an old friend who said she needed help and she could hire me for obviously not my normal pay, but enough money so that I could pay all my bills. And, so I would ride this little bike every day for 3 months and get this project done in KL and put food on the table and still pay my bills. And my next job was in Ipoh. And one of the ex-CEOs of YIM, who really respected me and I really respect him, said he needed help. So I said, okay, I'll go to Ipoh, but I can't stay there. I said, I have a family. He said, no, you come 2-3 times a week on the ETS train that I take at 6 a.m. So I can be there by 8:30 a.m. And get my work done and either come home on the last ETS at night or stay at a company provided apartment, basically rumah bujang lah. So I did that for 6 months. So basically what this proved to me is that I can do whatever it takes to survive and feed my family. So I think for people out there, if you you need to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you can do it, because you can. If you put yourself in a position, the last thing I wanted to do is put my hands up and cry and say I can't do this. And even though I felt like it at times, I'm human. But I'm happy. Actually, I'm proud that I was able to overcome this adversity and be where I am now. So thanks for asking the question, Rahim. Long answer.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody enjoy to hear that. I think not everybody can go through the same process, as you. I'm not sure even if I were in your position, but I can actually, climb back because it wasn't easy, and I don't think I can handle the function very well after that. But you did, so it's amazing.
Yeah.
With that, then I would like to pass the floor to Fedora again.
Last thing I would add before Fedora is that at Celcom now, I'm not the C level, right? I have many bosses above me, and if I were too concerned about appearances or too worried about what people would say, I may not have taken that job. But I don't think that matters anymore, right? At my age, I don't think that matters. I know I can contribute. I know I'm doing good for Celcom, and I know I'm bringing to the table something that they never had before, something they couldn't have done without me. So I'm bidding my time. I'm doing the best that I can, and hopefully somebody sees that I can do more than what I'm doing right now and give me a bigger role. So thanks again. Okay, Fedora, sorry.
Wow. I think all of us, I don't know about you, I got goosebumps because Heidi is so inspiring. As if I think by sharing, right? I think there's that spirit that you bring, and we didn't know, right? We thought we knew Azif, but we didn't. This is something we also learned so much from you, Azif. And with all that you've gone through, right? What is that something that still keeps you awake at night? You spoke about what were you when Ummi asked, right? You're a father, right? You're a husband, and you're a boss. And what keeps you awake at night now, Azif, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah. Well, right now I'm really happy where I am because somehow it's a relief not to be where the buck stops, right? When you are number one, obviously you have the weight of everything on your shoulder. I don't envy my boss, Idham Nawawi, the CEO of Celcom, because he probably has more sleepless nights than me. But probably is, even if you do your best, you still question whether that was your best. Could you have done better? I don't honestly think it's very productive. I think it's good to reflect. Obviously, you need to look back and see, have I done what I'm supposed to do? But sometimes you're obsessed with it. Sometimes I obsess with it. I say, I should have done this. I should have done that. There's a million things you should have, could have, would have done. But you did what you did, right? And you should learn how to do that. I struggle with that sometimes, and that does keep me awake. Should I have done better? But I'm learning to let that go. I'm learning to, leave it. Not to say that melepaskan batuk di tangga, not to say that just do whatever lah, but in a sense that it's not productive. Sometimes to spend so much time obsessing on things that are beyond your control. And I take to heart that what's within your control, in your circle of control, what's outside your circle of control. And I try and learn, and I talk to my wife about it, and, we try and do that together. So yeah, I wish I didn't have sleepless nights.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm sure most of us also trying our best to not overthink and think about what could, what should. So thank you, Azif. Over to you, Carl.
Yes. Actually, I'm ashamed to say I just only found out today that your brother was the great Ali Setan, Alayam Azmil Mustafa. Can you share a part of him with us?
Wow. He was always the extrovert, organizer, life of any party, life of any group you could have meet. So he was always a star, I think. And he was the sulong, he was the banglong, and I am the bungsu. So in between us, we're 11. So he's number one, I'm number 11. So there's a big distance, So by the time I was born, he was already in high school and, a big boy. So I always remember looking up to him. He's my idol, right? He did all this cool stuff. In one thing that not many people know was when we were in the States and my dad was doing his PhD. This was the early 70s, 71 actually. So when we arrived in the States in 1971, we stayed for 4 years, and I which is why English or Midwestern American English is my first language. And I had to learn BM when I came back. But he went to college, university, and he earned athletic scholarship from Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana. And if you know anything about American sports, collegiate sports, it is almost impossible to get a scholarship because they scout for talent more than any of our professional sports teams do. So he was the star center forward for Bloomington, Indiana University Hoosiers soccer team that reached the NCAA Division I finals when he was playing. They lost the finals though. But one story was, soon after he passed, one of his college teammates saw it in the news somewhere. He's based in the States. And he sent me all of these photos of my brother playing football and being covered by national news, because they reached the finals. Malaysian out jumping everyone over there. So, like I said, he was always the star. And amazing thing is, this good friend of his who sent me these pictures made a trip to Malaysia, and I actually met up with him and his wife in KL. On Jalan Tuku Deraman. For some reason, we had coffee at a mamak shop. And, so he was sharing stories about his college life and how he was such a star of the team. So that was amazing. And I also remember one time we were vacationing, if I'm not mistaken, it was in a foreign country, okay? And we were swimming in the pool of the hotel. There was a lot of people somehow. I was very young, so I vaguely remember this, but I remember that he organized everybody in the pool to play water polo in 2 teams. So he split everybody, all these people, into 2 teams. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to play. We're going to play against you. We're going to play against us. And the whole hotel was there cheering us on. It was crazy. And I don't know any other person who could command the presence of people around him like he could. So that was my big bro. We just call him Abang. We don't even have to call him Abang Long. Everybody in the family, all the cousins, everyone just calls him Abang. He's Abang.
Seriously, I have to say that probably that movie also inspired me to go to university, and I ended up in USM Penang.
Wow! I think that movie is USM Penang's biggest recruiting tool.
Yes. We dream of romantic encounters at the Batu lah,
Great one.
So yes, I would like to ask further. I mean, growing up, and you had a very influential dad too. I would like to ask, growing up, what were the 3 biggest things or events that influenced you to be who you are today? And I have to say that I really respect you, Aziph, because you seem to have boundless energy. You are like doing God knows how many things, and I'm like, I cannot cope up. So seriously, my respect to you.
Thank you so much, Carl. It's very kind of you to say so. I had a very interesting life growing up. I would definitely have to say growing up in the States for 4 years. My mom said I was 3 when we moved, and I could barely speak, so I was a late talker. But as soon as I arrived, I mean, I can't really remember, but this is the story she kept telling me, is that my brothers or my sisters would take me to the playground, and I would just sit there absorbing things because I couldn't speak. And then, I don't know how long this went on, but every day we would go to the playground. I didn't play with anyone because I couldn't communicate. But then one day I came home, and my mom said I would talk in Midwestern American twang nonstop, and I could just automatically speak. I didn't babble. I didn't, go for 1, 2, 3 words. I would just speak full sentences, and I guess I never stopped since then. So that was one of the key things. I always remember growing up, Carl, that there was always music in the house, and my dad is the biggest keroncong lover that I've ever met. So he would have all these keroncong albums on vinyl, and we had record players, and I think we had 2 or 3 record players because there was one in the living room. I remember my brother had one in his room, and I would, at a very young age, go through everyone's record collections, and I would go through everything from Jimi Hendrix to the Beatles to all these obscure jazz bands and jazz soloists. I don't think classical music was there, but jazz was definitely huge. Keroncong obviously was big, and the pop songs, the Beatles. So I had a very young, early start in music, and I've always loved music ever since. My family has always been musical. I also remember my dad being the biggest joker. He was so jovial. He would laugh and tell jokes all the time. There's one story in my family, and I wasn't there, but I think it was before my time, before I was born. So my mom and my aunt, I think this was in PD, was on the second story. I think it was a bungalow in PD, and they were talking by the window. And my dad, because there was talks of UFO at this time, this must have been in the early or mid 60s. So there was talks about UFO. So he climbed on top of the garage, tied a flashlight on a broomstick and would hang by one hand so that he could put the flashlight next to the window where my mom and her sister were talking, and they would scream, and he would like tell this story in every single family reunion since then. It was a legend lah. That was the the legend of my dad being the biggest joker you could ever meet. So thanks for asking that, Carl. It brings back memories.
Anyway, we are really, really happy to hear that. And back to you, Fiza.
So, Aziph, your energy, like Carl was saying, is infectious, right? So please do share with us, what's your happy pill? What makes you happy, Aziph? With everything that's going on, what's that one happy pill?
You know, again, I think, I've always been energetic. I've always been really excited about life. I think what made me realize that you could be happy no matter what was during my job at Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia, because the whole purpose of the entire organization was to uncover innovation by grassroots people, orang kampung basically. So we would go to people who, by our standards, had nothing, right? They didn't own a car, they lived in rundown shacks, but invariably they were happy. They would laugh and they would joke with their kids, they would play with their kids, and suddenly that connection became real in my mind, that you do not need material things, you don't not need anything really to be happy. You should be happy first, then the rest of your life will come together. Then you'll achieve what you need to achieve. So that realization to me was really pivotal, was honestly life-changing, because once I realized that, I said, hey, no matter what comes, no matter what happens, no matter what people say, no matter what people do to me, I'm still happy, because I want to be happy for my family. I want to be happy for my friends, you all. And now that with LinkedIn, I'm so blessed to have discovered LinkedIn. I want to be happy to the 16,000 people that follow me, so that, I can spread this happiness and I can make people happier in their day. And many people have said that to me, and you can't imagine how powerful that is. And it's just one line, and it said, thank you, Aziph, for making my day. Something that small and takes somebody 10 seconds to write and post makes such a huge impact in my day and my life, that I just have to give back. And I just want to make people happy.
You do, Aziph. Thank you so much. Love that. Yes, Nurul. Over to you, Nurul.
Well, we're almost done. It's been almost an hour. I think I can do this all night, like grilling Aziph and get to know, things around him. So anyway, thank you for this. Do whatever it takes to survive. I needed this, and it comes at the right time. Thank you so much. Okay.
Wow.
My question to you, right? This is a Stay Kind program, and the goal of this session is really to spread kindness to a lot of people, because this is something that we need. Today, there's a lot of bad news going on every day, and I guess having this kind of program, thinking about a lot of things that we can do, kind of kindness that we can share with other people, that really ease all the pain of the people suffering. My question to you on happiness is, what is your secret recipe when it comes to kindness?
Wow. I'll tell you one of the purest examples that I have, and this was in the late 90s. I think it was 98, if I'm not mistaken. I was on quite a long trip to Istanbul, Turkey, and I basically didn't have an agenda, and I was lucky enough to have a car assigned to me, an apartment, and I could explore Istanbul any way I wanted. I just had to send somebody to work and pick her up at night, and that's my job. But in the meantime, I could do whatever I want. So I explored. And I met so many great people. And it was a very spiritual time for me. I was on a spiritual journey as well. And I would go from masjid to all of these, because Istanbul is such a spiritual place, right? So I met this gentleman. I didn't know he was a sheikh of one of the biggest tarikats in the world, but one of the biggest groups of spiritual groups in Islam in the world. And he was basically their grand sheikh. And I met him at a masjid, and he said, come to my store. And he works you couldn't imagine that somebody like him would have to work for a living, but he worked in this ancient, like 1,000-year-old bookstore in one of the souks in Istanbul. It's a tiny bookstore, but he had like 100-year-old manuscripts there. And that was his job. But the other thing he does is, obviously, as the spiritual leader, is give classes. So one day he said, come with me to one of these lunch hour lectures I'm going to give at this company, right? So it was a small IT company, and it was like a town hall. So the CEO, all the VPs, all of the managers, and all of the staff were there, about 60, 70 of them, small group, small company. So he gave his lecture in Turkish, which I couldn't understand, but I could feel the passion, I could feel the spirituality. And after that lecture, everybody else went to work except two people. And we retreated to the pantry, and the sheikh was sitting, and in front of him were two people like this, like in reverence, because he was the grand sheikh, right? So they were sitting like in awe of him. On the right was the CEO of the company, and on the left was the tea boy. They don't have tea ladies over there, it was boys, right? And they were both students of the sheikh. And they were totally equal, right? The CEO and the tea boy were sitting next, they were touching each other, sitting next so tightly, and both of them in this position, listening to every single syllable that came out of the sheikh's mouth. And that just blew my mind. And I thought, what it was for the CEO to be that kind and reverent to this old man, as well as to this young boy sitting next to him, touching his shoulders and side by side to him. And that image and that feeling of kindness, I think, stayed with me from that day till now, and has informed all of my interactions with people, because really there's no status, there's no standard, there's nobody, everyone's equal. And I've seen and felt it and tasted it, and I know what it's like. So I try and spread that to every single interaction that I have with anyone. I hope I'm living up to that.
Wow, meremang bulu roma dengar cerita ni. Thank you so
amazing.
much, Aziph. Thank you so much for the sharing. Yeah.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much. You have been an inspiration to us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to take any last questions, if anything in the chat that I didn't see, or any of you have any last comments or questions. I'm happy to take them.
Maybe last one.
Sure.
Can you tell us shocking fact about you? Interesting and shocking.
Shocking fact. Wow. Okay. I don't know if any of you remember this, but there was a show called Benson and Hedges Golden Dreams. Everybody remember that? It kind of show your age lah, if you know this show. But there was a show on TV, I think it was on TV3, called Benson and Hedges Golden Dreams. What they did was they asked people to write in and share their dreams, and they'll make the dreams come true, right? So I was on one of their episodes. They sent me to the Isle of Wight in England to race powerboats. So in order to get into an official powerboat race, you have to be licensed. And to be licensed, you need to go through so many tests. And one of the tests is called the underwater escape hatch test. And in this test, you are basically locked in this capsule that is dunked, and you're wearing a 5-point harness, and you're dunked into the pool until the water reaches above your head. The capsule is turned upside down, so your feet is up and your head is down. And obviously there's safety marshals in there in scuba outfit, and they have oxygen, but you don't, right? So you're upside down and you're hanging there. You have to release your harness, open the window, and swim out. So this is the same test that helicopter pilots, anyone working offshore has to take. And it is the scariest test in your life. And grown veteran pilots would cry because they didn't want to do the test and literally break down and cry. But I did it. So I passed the test. I passed the license. I got my license, and I raced around the Isle of Wight. It's called the Isle of Wight race. And I had camera crews following me because obviously it was for a TV show. And so all of these veteran racers, right, would look at, who is this guy? Who's this Asian? Who's this Chinese guy from Malaysia. I don't know, because they think all Asians are alike, right? So who's this Asian guy with camera crews? He must be a awesome racer from Japan or something, right? So they were scared of me. And this was in a Division 3 boat, which wasn't that fast. It's not one of those bullets lah, but it was still fast, right? It was a race boat. So I had a navigator beside me. I was the pilot. So you race 3 rounds around. And in a race boat, you carry only enough fuel to go where you're supposed to go because you want to keep your weight low. But I missed one of the turnings. Because I missed it, I had to turn back. So towards the end of the race, I could see the finish line. It was like 2 kilometers away. You could see it. I ran out of gas. So the camera crew on the helicopter following me, not following the race leader, following me, who is in dead last because I couldn't finish. DNF, did not finish, circling me. And I was like, no, I lost the race. But the shocking fact is, Ummi, I did not apply for, that wasn't my dream. It was never my dream to race boats. I didn't even know I liked racing boats. I do enjoy it though. But somebody applied and won. And when they explained to him the test that he had to do, he pulled out at the last minute. So he didn't have the courage to do it. So when I heard, and I heard this through the grapevine, one of my friends was working in an advertising company that was working for the production house that was doing the show. So he said, hey, dude, they want to find somebody who can step in at the last minute. You want to go to England? Of course I want to go to England, right? I was working at the bank at the time. So I wrote this passionate note. I faxed it. We're still using fax machines, and zzz, it goes in. It arrives at the production house and they call me up and I convinced them over the phone that I am your guy. So the next day they brought me into the studio. They did some shoots and they bought me a ticket. So I flew to England on their expense. It was a really nice trip. All expenses paid. I had a sister-in-law who lives in France who came to the Isle of Wight to meet me, and I followed her back to her house. I spent an additional week in Europe. So it was fantastic. So the shocker is it wasn't my dream, but I got to do it anyway.
Wow, I think I am so grateful to be part of your show. Knowing you like a colorful person, went through like roller coaster, right?
I can't believe it myself listening to it. I mean, thanks for bringing this out.
Honored.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been so much fun reliving my life. Nobody's asked all of this before. I've never ever talked about any of this before. So now I have content for my future posts. Thank you so much.
Other people they live their own dream, but you live somebody else's dream. Isn't that amazing?
Awesome. Super lucky, man.
Anyway, on behalf of the team here, on behalf of the co-host here, we would like to thank you, Aziph. I think it was a very interesting session that you have. I think there are so many takeaways that I can, if I want to list down, of course, I cannot list them today, but the one that I highlight most, I think, talk about the high energy that you have, and then, you're a influencer with 16,000 followers within a short period of time. That is really amazing. And then, of course, your quality of the funny, also be a comedian. Now we know how you managed to get this from your father, from your brother, So it was great. So thank you so much. And I think probably we can do it sometime in the future for the same session for you to actually share more of your background, interesting background.
Definitely. Let's do this again. We do have a guest next week, Rahim, that maybe you want to talk about on the 4th of August for our next show.
Oh yes, I think it's good. On the 4th of August, we will bring in a CEO of MIGPA. He's actually also my old friend, and somehow I think he's already managing this MIGPA for a couple of years. So I think it's good to actually have him, and especially for those accountants. I'm sure some of you here, I think, has that background, including Ummi, right? So I think it's good to actually have him to actually share whatever, especially in the aspect of stay kind. I haven't talked to him yet in detail what kind of kindness that he wants to share, but I think I'm sure this guy is a very nice person, very nice, very jovial, and he's just like you. I think he's a very interesting character.
Great, great. Looking forward. So everybody in the audience, please do tune in next week, same time, same place. We will have a very special guest, the CEO of MICPA. So I guess that's it, guys. You guys are the hosts. You can wrap up the show for me tonight. Thank you.
We can only tepuk tangan lah.
That's our way of wrapping up. So yeah, tepuk tangan, and I'm sure our audience also tepuk tangan like us. And thank you so much, Azzy. Has been a great night. Thank you, everyone, and we
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
again next week.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye.
See you next week.